Hi, everybody, and welcome to Coaching Corner. So we've got a brilliant question this week. It's from Vennie, who is an entrepreneur in the beauty arena. And she writes, how do you give yourself a pat on the shoulder for your effort without sliding back into the comfort zone? Or how do you appreciate your effort and achievements? I never seem to appreciate my hard work. It's always on to the next thing, and it's exhausting. So there are two questions there, but I think they're really, really telling. I would say that Vennie is probably what I would call a self-critical overachiever, that she is incredibly driven. And actually, I know her, so I know this is true, that she's incredibly driven and wants to achieve a huge amount of things and already has achieved a huge amount of things. And it is never enough. So once she's faced one big challenge, she throws it over the shoulder and it's on to the next without pausing for breath. And so this is really typical. I mean, I wrote an article. If you haven't seen it already, check it out. It's called The 5 Signs to Tell If You Are a Self-Critical Overachiever. And as a former self-critical overachiever, I really recognize it. This is part of my tribe. So I would say that on the one hand, having that drive to achieve, it gets you places, doesn't it? And some of the most successful people in the world are huge self-critical overachievers. So on the one hand, having that drive and having that ability to face challenges and then throw them over your shoulder and carry on is a great thing, but not if, as Vennie says, it leaves you feeling exhausted. So if this is you, this is my coaching corner on this, what to do, how to handle it. So my first thing is really is to think about yourself as a Formula One car. Okay, so you are peak performance, high achieving, going like a bomb, 100 miles an hour around that track. And remember that even a Formula One car that Lewis Hamilton drives or whoever, they need a pit stop. They need to stop. They need they get high maintenance pit stops, don't they? They have about 12 different mechanics changing their tires, changing their oil, doing this, that, and the other. So even a Formula One car needs to stop once in a while. So you cannot go through life achieving, a challenge after challenge after challenge without taking a pause or without taking a pit stop and expect yourself to not find it exhausting. I hope that makes sense. So even if your ambition and your drive is something that's really, really helping you to succeed and helping you not to fall back into that comfort zone, etc., you still do need to tackle the bit that is leaving you drained and exhausted. So one of my quick things is that when I speak to my self-critical overachieving coachees is because they're very, very harsh on themselves. And we are, aren't we? We're our own worst critic. You know, we're perfectionists. Nothing is ever good enough. And what I say to them is like, if you had a child or if you knew a little boy or girl, nephew, niece, etc., who had worked really, really, really hard in their exams and had got, 10 straight A's, what would you say to them? You would give them a pat on the back. You'd celebrate that. You'd stop and you'd say how well they had done, right? You wouldn't just say, yeah, that was great. Now just get on with the next set. Well, you might, but, I think most people would think that actually, people deserve the praise if they put in the hard work and they can take a moment of praise. So, why are you any different? So in one sense, I think, you really have to look at yourself almost like have two versions of yourself. So you've got a version here who's like, I can't stop. And I'm on to the next one. And then have another version of yourself that just says, hang on a minute, let's just stop. Well done for what you've done. I sometimes use my maiden name when I'm talking to myself, and my name was Tracy Edwards. So I sometimes say, well done, Edwards, you've done this, that, and the other. So championing myself that way. So if you need to do something like that, make sure you are doing it. Don't let those moments pass. But on a more, I suppose it's more spiritual level, many of you know that I'm passionate about well-being, and I really believe that to succeed in today's VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, we as executives and leaders and founders have to maintain our good well-being physically and mentally, and maintain that resilience. And it doesn't work if you're going like the clappers and not having any pit stops. And there's a concept in yoga called Ahimsa, which is non-violence or kindness to others and kindness to self. And it goes back to that thing. It's the very first thing in yoga that is in the kind of like the Bible of yoga, is the very first thing. It's not the breathing. It's not the postures. It's not the fancy handstands. The very first thing is ahimsa, is being kind. So just when you are really being critical with yourself, when you are not appreciating yourself, not indulging yourself by giving a pat on the shoulder, just ask yourself, am I being kind to myself? And if it was somebody else, would this be a kind way to treat them? And if it's not, then take note. So my other practical things is that I just think you've got to, my other things, I just think about it in this way, is that when you have a success or an achievement and you've been working hard, it's really important to celebrate your wins. Celebrate your wins. And whether you do that privately using your alter ego, telling your inner champion, telling yourself that you've done good, or whether you share it with your family and friends who love you and will be happy for you, I think it's really important to mark it down, because so many of us will only ever discuss the things that we're moaning about or the things that aren't right. And it's funny, actually, like a lot of my parents' generation will look at the news and say they only ever put bad news on. And so it's the same sort of thing. Like, don't, for yourself and for other people around you, don't only ever talk about what's wrong. Talk about what is right and what you are proud of. And for those of you who are worried that that's boastful, it's not boastful. It's like celebrating the wins. Think back to that straight A student who's worked their little socks off. Would you really think that's boastful if they say, I got 10 A's? No, it's just fact. And in the same way, your wins, your efforts paying off, and your achievements are wins, and they are there to be acknowledged and celebrated. So be kind to yourself, right? So make sure you do that. The second thing is, I think, document them. We all have, my friend Lisa, she has a cheer file. So anytime anybody sends her something nice in an email and says nice things about her, she puts it into a little folder called cheer. So when she's feeling down, if she has a gloomy day, she can check that folder out and feel good. And in the same way, I think, life goes so fast. And for you self-critical overachievers out there, you will be achieving so much that they'll be stacking up and you won't have taken any notice of them. If you've been to any of my mini summits, I often refer to self-critical overachievers achieving something and then chucking them over their shoulder like diamonds and rubies, just to be left to be trodden over in the soil. So make sure you document your wins, whether that is a little diary, whether it's a little folder, just whatever it is, just make sure that you put it down. Otherwise, you're going to forget it. You won't even, I bet you've forgotten it already. So the other thing, I think, my third point is think about yourself as your own agent, as your own Hollywood agent, right? So they would not be quiet about the achievements and the wins that you had got. They would be telling everybody about them. And why? Because they're good for business. So if an actor's been a huge success and won an Oscar in one actor, you can bet your bottom dollar that they're going to market the heck out of that in order to get that actor another role. And likewise with you, in what ways are your wins and your achievements good for business, good for your career? Now, you don't want to be like shoving that under the carpet, do you? So make sure that you are your own agent. In what ways are your wins and your achievements good for business? And if they are good for business, post about them. So LinkedIn's perfect place to say, listen, guys, I'm really thrilled that I've managed to do such and such. And from what I can see on LinkedIn, everybody loves a good news story. People think that people love to champion other people doing well. So it's not boasting. It is statement of fact. Your achievements are a statement of fact. So there's a difference between boasting and being arrogant and just being proud of what you've achieved. And so just think about that. Like, don't cast them aside, because essentially they're good for business. They're proof points that you have either that you've solved problems, that you've struck deals, whatever it is. They are proof points to talk about and share, which are good for your career. So don't hide your light under a bushel. So make sure they are fully out there. And my next point is to look back. So we're almost at the end of the year. We are coming up to December soon. What I recommend you do is take out a big piece of paper, or if you're digitally minded, you can do it on your iPad or whatever, and draw a line from January to December. And then on that line, just chart the ups and downs that you had this year. So you know, we all have ups and downs, right? And it's been a challenging year. It's been a challenging 2 years. But this year, just chart from January to December. Go back through your diary if you have to. Go back through your calendar to remember what you've done and remember what you've achieved, and put the high points and the low points, and really just look back and think, you know, what a year. What a year. What am I proud of? What am I proud of? What am I celebrating? What can I share with my community? What can I use as proof points for my business? And the other thing I would say is that having an end in mind is really useful if you suffer from this never being able to acknowledge your own achievements. So I'm going to go back to that a metaphor of the Formula One car. So we can all be Formula One cars, right, zooming around the track. And often I think self-critical overachievers who love a big challenge and then forget about it as soon as it's done are basically going round and round and round that track where there is no finish line. And often I think that's why they feel, okay, I've got to go to the next. I've got to keep going. I've got to keep going. When am I going to get to the finish line? You know, and that is exhausting. So if you don't have an idea of what the goal is, what the crossing line is, what the target is, what the goal is, how will you know that you've got there? So I think it's really, really important to make sure that you've got a clear strategy about where you're going, clear vision of what you want to achieve, and crucially, how you will know that you've got it. Because otherwise you're going to go through life and you've definitely got that drive and that ambition, and they've definitely got the appetite for challenge, etc. But if you don't know what the end point is, or what the end point for this year is, then how will you know if you've crossed the line? So I think it's very, very difficult to feel that sense of satisfaction and achievement if you are continually going around that track with no finish line. So finally, those are my few tips. I've got loads more. And if you are struggling with any of this, anything about career clarity, about being a self-critical overachiever, if you think that self-doubt and imposter syndrome is clouding your path around that track, or clouding your path in terms of clouding your vision in terms of creating that end goal, then give me a call. You know, I offer free one-to-one discovery calls. You can message me through wherever you're watching this, or just check me out on Fast Track to Fearless. Let's talk. And so that hopefully this time next year, you, or even before, hopefully this has worked, you know, even before, you can stop going from being a self-critical overachiever to somebody who is kind to themselves and nourishes themselves, and celebrates their wins privately, celebrates their wins publicly, and looks at the ups and downs and looks back. But listen, I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear in the comments any wins that you are celebrating. And we're almost at the end of the year, so it's a really, really good time to look back and do that squiggly line of the ups and downs. But tell me what your wins are. All my self-critical overachievers out there, I want to hear from you. I know it's hard to big yourself up, especially publicly, but believe me, it gets easier the more you do it, and it's good for business. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, and join me next week for more on Coaching Corner. And don't forget, if you've got a question that you would like answered, then please just email it to me. Take care. Bye.